Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into one of the most chilling, enduring, and honestly, prophetic masterpieces of the 20th century. Imagine a world painted entirely in stark black and white, shattered only by these jarring, violent flashes of red. It's a world where reality itself is mutable, where total loyalty is demanded by an all-powerful state, and where the very concept of truth is completely under siege. We are, of course, talking about George Orwell's 1984.
So, when this book was first published back in 1949, it mostly served as a post-World War II political allegory. Fun fact here, Orwell actually just flipped the last two digits of the year he was writing it, 1948, to create his terrifying near-future setting of 1984. But as we're going to see by exploring the insights compiled in Thomas Pynchon's brilliant introduction alongside Orwell's actual text, this novel evolved from a stark warning into a highly prophetic blueprint for modern society. It really isn't just fiction anymore, it's practically a mirror held up to the future.
Now Big Brother is watching you. Just hearing those 5 words kind of makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, right? In the novel, this caption sits right beneath a dark-eyed face that's plastered on literally every street corner. It's the ultimate symbol of Oceania's surveillance state. But it's also a phrase that has completely bridged the gap between Orwell's fictional world and our own reality. This idea of constant, inescapable observation. It's way more relevant today than Orwell could have ever imagined.
So, to really unpack this blueprint, we're going to cover 5 key areas today. First, the architect of Oceania. Then, geopolitics, the death of truth, digital age surveillance, and finally, hope in the proles. Let's get right into it.
All right, Part 1. The Architect of Oceania. You see, before George Orwell was, well, George Orwell, he was Eric Arthur Blair, and he was a man whose intense political anger was forged in a very real crucible. Back in 1922, he served with the Imperial Police in Burma, where he saw the oppressive, grinding machinery of empire firsthand. Fast forward to 1936, he was actually in Spain fighting fascists, where he was literally shot in the throat. But more importantly, as Thomas Pynchon points out, Spain is where Orwell learned the crucial difference between real and phony anti-fascism. He saw political movements that claimed to fight for the working class but were secretly just cementing their own absolute power. This chronological escalation of his first-hand encounters with imperialism and totalitarianism, that is exactly what fueled his fierce, unrelenting opposition to authoritarianism. He had literally invested his own blood to earn that political anger. Moving on to Part 2. Geopolitics and superpowers. Orwell wasn't just writing about a damp, gloomy flat in London. He was mapping out the entire globe. In 1943, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin actually met at the Tehran Conference to carve up a defeated world into what they called zones of influence. Pynchon notes that Orwell took this real-world division of spoils and made a terrifying leap in scale. Those Tehran talks directly inspired Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia, the 3 superstates in the book locked in a perpetual, totally unwinnable war. And the crazy thing is, the goal of this war isn't victory. Not at all. The goal is to use up the products of human labor so that the masses remain poor, ignorant, and easily controlled. The geopolitical stalemate is entirely by design. Which brings us to Part 3. The Death of Truth. So, if a global stalemate controls the body, how do you control the mind? Well, enter doublethink. This is the power of holding 2 totally contradictory beliefs in your mind at the exact same time and accepting both of them. It's essentially an extreme, weaponized form of cognitive dissonance. It's training yourself to tell deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them, to forget any fact that's becoming convenient, and then magically draw it back from oblivion the second it's needed. The party uses this to induce a state of complete compliance. As the character Symes says perfectly in the book, orthodoxy is unconsciousness.
And, this really isn't just a fictional concept. As Thomas Pynchon observes, we see official amnesia and outright lying benevolently termed today as political spin. We see nominally free news media presenting balanced coverage where one truth completely neuters an opposite one. Pynchon even highlights the doublethink in naming a massive war-making apparatus the Department of Defense. The manipulation of truth that Orwell invented to explore totalitarianism has some incredibly chilling parallels with modern information control. It just proves his profound understanding of how political discourse actually works.
War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These aren't just creepy slogans, they are the death of truth in practice. The regime's ultimate goal is to narrow the range of thought completely by manipulating language through newspeak. They want to make thought crime literally impossible because there will simply be no words left to even express it. Think about it. If you destroy the words for freedom, you destroyed the very concept of freedom itself.
Now for Part 4, Digital Age Surveillance.
In the novel, Winston Smith lives in absolute terror of the two-way telescreen. But Pynchon points out something really dark here. Winston's clunky telescreen is actually embarrassingly primitive compared to our modern marvels. The real irony? Winston was forced by the state to have a screen in his home. Us? We willingly buy ours. We install them in our living rooms, carry them everywhere in our pockets, and actively feed them our personal data all day long.
Orwell wrote about police helicopters hovering like blue bottles, snooping into people's windows. Today, that's just a standard resource for law enforcement. His telescreens are perfectly mirrored in our sleek flat screens and those ubiquitous surveillance cameras on every corner. The technology of oppression hasn't just arrived. As Pynchon chillingly observes, the internet and its interactive algorithms offer a level of social control on a scale that 20th century tyrants could literally only dream about. It is insidiously improved.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's look at Part 5, Hope in the Proles.
Because despite the heavy dystopian despair, Orwell does leave us a lifeline. He writes, "If there was hope, it lay in the proles." Now, Orwell actually lived among the working poor during the Depression in the 1930s, and that's where he learned their true, imperishable worth. He deeply believed that everyday people, the ones who just want to live their lives and are largely ignored by the party's grand schemes, they are the ones storing up the power to endure. They hold the ultimate potential to eventually overturn authoritarianism.
But we have to admit that hope is a fragile thing. Deep in the Ministry of Love, the inter-party official O'Brien tells Winston that their world is founded entirely on hatred, and he says that progress in our world will be progress towards more pain. So as we look at this blueprint Orwell left us, and we see how neatly our modern world aligns with his warnings about political spin, massive surveillance, and endless war, we really have to ask ourselves, are we steering our own technology toward freedom, or are we driving right toward Oceania? That's the question I want you to take away from this explainer today, because ultimately, the answer is entirely up to us. Thanks for joining me.